If I had known what waited for me beyond the familiar trails,
If I had known that one simple detour would put me inches from something I was never meant to witness, I would have turned back the moment the forest opened into unfamiliar terrain. I've hiked alone for years, hundreds of miles, dozens of trips, but nothing prepared me for the third day of that journey into the Appalachians. The first 2 days were perfect. A quiet rhythm of walking, resting, brewing coffee on a small stove, listening to the wind move through the branches. I'd been in that region many times before, safe, predictable, almost comforting. But on the third day, I wandered farther. Not intentionally. The trail simply drifted into a part of the forest I didn't recognize. Fresh undergrowth, untouched clearings, and a sense of space I hadn't felt before. Curiosity nudged me deeper, and the morning was calm enough that I didn't question it. Around early afternoon, a sharp sound rose from below the ridge I was crossing. Not a single noise, but several overlapping ones. Movement, something dragging, and a thick, wet ripping. My first thought was animals. A bear, maybe. Coyotes tearing into a carcass. Nothing unusual for deep forest. I lowered myself instantly and crept toward the edge of the slope. The drop wasn't sheer, but it was steep. 40, maybe 50 meters. Dense trees hid most of the ground, but I saw definite motion between the trunks. I lay flat on my stomach, letting pine needles poke through my sleeves as I slid closer. Then I reached for the small pair of travel binoculars I always keep in my side pocket. Cheap, lightweight, barely more than a toy, but enough to identify animals. I raised them and angled the lenses between two branches. The moment the view came into focus, my breath locked in my chest. They weren't animals, they were people. 3, possibly 4, crouched over the body of a deer. Their clothes were nothing but tatters hanging off them. Their hair was long, filthy, matted with sticks and leaves. Their skin looked weathered, almost toughened by years outdoors. They moved with a strange, low, animalistic efficiency. One of them dug both hands into the deer's flank, tore free a dripping strip of raw meat, and shoved it into their mouth. A cold wave hit me so hard, I almost dropped the binoculars. My mind tried to make sense of it. Feral humans, lost hikers, anything. But nothing matched what I was seeing. These weren't people who had gotten lost. These were people who belonged to a different way of living entirely. Suddenly, one of them paused, lifting their head just slightly, like a wolf catching a scent. I froze. My body flattened against the earth. My lungs refused to move. I tried to melt into the dote itself. Seconds felt like minutes. Minutes felt like hours. I kept expecting one of them to raise their head fully, to look straight toward the ridge, to spot the faint glint of my binoculars. But they didn't. And after what felt like an eternity, I lowered the binoculars a fraction of an inch, and the clearing below was empty. Completely empty. The deer carcass was still there, but the figures, those twisted, ragged shapes, had vanished without a sound. Panic hit me in a single pulse. I slid backward from the ridge, careful not to snap a branch, not to disturb a stone, not even to breathe too loudly. When I finally stood, my legs almost failed beneath me. I didn't think. I didn't look back. I just moved. Quiet at first, then faster, then as fast as I dared without breaking silence. My pack bounced against my shoulders. My breaths came sharp and shallow, and the trail that had seemed so welcoming that morning now felt like a trap I needed to escape. I didn't know where they had gone. I didn't know if they had heard me, but I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I had to get out of that forest before dark. I don't remember the first mile of my escape. My body moved on instinct, driven by a single thought pulsing like a heartbeat in my skull. Get out before they find you. The trail that just that morning felt like part of a quiet adventure now seemed too narrow, too exposed. Every bend felt like a blind corner. Every rustle made my stomach clench. I kept glancing over my shoulder, terrified I'd see shapes slipping between the trees. But the forest stayed still. Too still. Not the peaceful kind of silence I'd known the past 2 days. This silence felt stretched, tense, unnatural, as if the woods were holding their breath with me. Even the air felt thicker, heavier, like it resisted moving across my skin. The sun sagged lower, dragging the last warmth with it, Shadows grew long and sharp, reaching across the trail like black fingers. I didn't dare stop, didn't drink, didn't eat. My legs screamed with every step. My throat burned like sandpaper. But the memory of that clearing wouldn't let me slow down. Those ragged bodies bent over the deer, the tearing sounds, the way one of them suddenly lifted its head, alert, tense, smelling the air, the way they vanished without a single snapped twig.
Dusk melted into darkness, and the trail became harder to follow. My boots slid on loose dirt. Roots grabbed at my ankles like hands. My breathing grew ragged, too loud, echoing in my ears. Each time I exhaled, I wondered if something else in the forest heard it too. When I finally spotted an old trail marker nailed crookedly to a tree, relief hit me like a physical blow. I actually stopped and let out a shaking breath I hadn't realized I was holding. I wasn't safe, not even close, but at least I wasn't lost anymore. This part of the forest I knew. Civilization was still always away, but at least it existed somewhere ahead of me. Night fully settled, cold, sweeping in with it. The temperature dropped fast, biting into my fingers until they felt wooden around the trekking poles. My backpack straps dug into my shoulders like knives, each step a jolt of pain. But stopping wasn't an option. Stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant imagining those figures crawling silently through the dark behind me. So I forced myself forward. Branches scraped my arms. Leaves brushed against my face. I kept my head down and my pace steady. My mind repeated the same words. Keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. Then, finally, a faint orange glow flickered through the trees. I froze for a moment, hardly trusting my eyes, but it grew brighter, more real. The ranger station. I stumbled toward it, almost tripping as I broke out of the tree line and stepped onto the gravel clearing. My legs felt hollow, unsteady. The small wooden building, lit from within, looked like a lighthouse in a pitch-black sea. A ranger stepped outside, mid-50s, weathered face, trimmed beard. His expression shifted the moment he saw me. "Evening," he called out. Then, more cautiously, "You look like you've had a rough one. You injured?" I shook my head, trying to swallow, but my throat felt tight. No, not injured. But I saw something. Down in a ravine." My voice cracked. "People, or something like people." He didn't flinch, didn't blink. Instead, he muttered, "Damn," under his breath, soft, like he wasn't meant to say it aloud. "Come inside," he said. "Now." The station was warm, lit with soft yellow bulbs. The smell of pine cleaner and old wood hit me, grounding me for the first time since I'd seen the clearing. Another ranger, older, heavy-set, gray hair tied back, looked up from behind a desk. "Sit down," he said. His tone wasn't unkind, but it left no room for argument. "Tell us exactly what you saw." I sat. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I told them everything. Every image burned into my mind. The rags, the wild hair, the way the meat tore under their hands, the predator-like stillness, the way they vanished. When I finished, neither spoke. Then, the older ranger leaned back, exhaled, and said, "You're not the first." A cold wave ran across my skin. The younger ranger added, "We've had reports for years. Hikers saying they've seen people like that, always in the same damn sector." "Did you ever find where they live?" I asked. The question tasted like fear. Both shook their heads. "We've searched that area more times than I can count," the older ranger said. "Never found shelters, never found camps, but we do find things." I hesitated. "What things?" "Animal remains," he said, "stripped clean in ways that don't match predators, tracks we can't identify." He paused, jaw tightening. "And a couple of times, human remains." My breath caught. "So they're real," I whispered. "We don't know what they are," the younger ranger said, "but they know those woods better than anyone, and they do not want contact." The older ranger leaned in, voice low and firm. "Don't ever go back there. Locals avoid that whole sector. You should too." I nodded slowly, because I didn't trust my voice to hold steady. But one final truth pressed itself into my mind. If those feral figures had looked up just once, if I had slipped, if I had made even a single sound, I wouldn't be here telling the story.